What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to another video. Once again, before I get started, go ahead and hit that like and please subscribe. Now, in this video, I'll be explaining a little bit about what is it like working in prison, as far as the jobs and trades that you may have seen on TVs and movies. Like, how does that work? So, listen up. Now, before I get started, I'm speaking primarily for California prisons, CDC. Never been to prison in any other state. And just by the way, I discharged a P number in California CDC. Spent the early part of my life in and out them prisons, so I know a little bit about it. So let's get on with the story. So, well, the first thing you need to know is it's really no different than out here on the streets. I mean, you get up in the morning, you drink your coffee, you get ready, and you go to work. See, one of the things you gotta understand is each prison is like its own city, it's its own economy, and the inmates do all the work in that city. All the guards do is turn keys and count for the most part. So, with that being said, everything you see on the street, from the garbage man to construction worker, secretary, janitor, you see that in prison. They got jobs for that in prison. And again, the inmates do all of that. And certain prisons may have a certain specialty, have a certain industry or trade that they specialize in. Like, certain prisons make license plates, some got a chicken farm, some prisons may have a dairy. You're gonna have most prisons already got like a construction or whatever. Or even when I was at DUI, they was making the Herman Miller desks that they use in universities, and they call this PIA, which stands for Prison Industry Authority. So all those type of jobs fall under PIA, and PIA do everything, even from the clothes we wear to the fake Chuck Taylors to the prison boots. That's all PIA. And PIA, of course, are the good jobs. So if you in prison, of course, and you programming, you probably gonna want a PIA job or a laid back job. Maybe an R&R at the chaplain desk or something, just kicking back. But for the most part, if you doing time, you're gonna want a PIA job. Now, me, I never worked a PIA job because in order for you to get those jobs, you got to be doing a long time. So, because they figure, well, they're not going to train you all this time, and you only got like 2-3 years. By the time you really get in, you getting up out of there. So, a lot of the lifers and long termers gonna have a lot of them good jobs. Not all the time, but for the most part. And again, like I said, the inmates run everything. So a lot of times it's up to certain lifers or inmates whether you even get in or have access to certain places. And if they don't want you there, you ain't gonna be there. Not every time, but a lot of times that's how I go. I never had a PIA job. I done worked on the yard crew before. I done worked at the infirmary, and I done worked at the law library. But I never had a PIA job. And also, no matter who you is, you gonna start off working in the kitchen. Every time I went to prison, before I even got another job, they start you off in the kitchen. Everybody getting that kitchen. And then eventually you gonna get what is called a ducat, which is like a little slip where it's gonna tell you where your new job is and what your pay number gonna be. Now again, like I said, the PIA job's gonna have all of high pay numbers. And the funny thing is, you might back then 8 cent an hour, 11 cent, 13 cent an hour, up to 23 cent, 33 cent. When you get up to them, then them are considered decent pay numbers, which is funny. And I ain't even counting the fire camps, which is a whole nother thing. They get paid a little more. I think it's maybe $1 an hour, which is a lot of money in jail, but whatever. And of course, them are whole different facilities. I'm just counting the state prisons in California, and that's another thing. California is the real prison capital. California got maybe 33, 34 prisons. And I ain't counting fire camps. I ain't even counting CCFs, what they call private prisons. Yeah, I think CCFs. And I'm talking about 30 something at least. And I heard they closing down 4 of them. Okay, that's better than nothing, but whatever. So anyway, again, like I said, it's no different than on the streets. You get up, depending on where you at, you gonna go meet, or what your job is. You gonna go to the Sally Port. Like when I worked on the outside work crew, we all meet up at the Sally Port. And they go, X-ray wind, and you meet up with the CO or whatever. Like I said, depending on what job you're doing, it may not even be a CO, which is a correction officer that you're working with or up under. It may be what we call a free staff, which is somebody that works for the prison, but they not a correctional officer. They is free staff coming from the street, and that's usually a kitchen worker or some sort of recreational, maybe the visiting. I don't even think the visiting, because they got COs all up in there. And it's funny because when I worked at the yard crew at Soledad, we would drive around basically the whole compound, the facility. Like in another video, I mentioned that compound is 2 prisons. You got Soledad, then you got Salinas Valley State Prison right there, and then you got a fire camp right next to the Soledad South Yard. And we would drive around that compound cleaning up weed eater, doing little stuff like that. But since we would go around the whole compound, I was able to see the dairy. Soledad had a dairy. They gonna have a maintenance crew. They gonna have a what we call a shit plant. Like I said, they got the garbage. Everything that, for the most part, that you see in the city that has a city-yard economy run, you're gonna have those certain positions. You're gonna have plenty of clerical positions, and depending on the position, well, the inmates do anything anyway, and it's another reason how the inmates run prison, meaning we know everything for the most part. Now, not everything, but we got access to everything. Certain, especially lifers, they can get you transferred. They can get themselves transferred to certain facilities a lot faster without going through the scrutiny. And it all depends. It all depends on them and their relationship at the facility that they at. So, like the movie Shawshank Redemption, yeah, it can be like that. My regular program in prison days, it was like that. Now, again, like I said, just because you've been to prison don't mean you know how to do time. So some people get up in there and they ain't doing that. They running at the brick wall, or depending on what yard you on, if it's if it's go time, then there ain't none of that going on, because you already know what time it is. You got to do what you got to do. So it ain't normal program. So I'm speaking of now is just basically normal prison born day-to-day program. Now, again, you can go to school. Now, the time I was doing time in prison, it was CDC, California Department of Corrections. Now I noticed they got the CDCR, the R at the end, which is rehabilitation. And I remember speaking to one of the COs of Soledad, and I learned a lot of things from this OG CO. He was a white CO too, by the way. But anyway, he was saying like how this is about correction, this ain't about rehabilitation. And he also mentioned how back then, once upon a time, inmates can get certain, degrees or whatnot, because I was, I was gonna try to do that. And they shut that down, and he told me like, yeah, it was this lady, this girl, she was trying to get an award or whatever, and it went to an inmate, and the mom got mad or whatnot. But my reply was, why in the hell is, I guess, this certain certificate or whatever, they only give out a certain mini amount, and one went to an inmate and didn't go to her. But I'm like, why is they even giving them certificates or whatnot, even out of the same pool as so-called civilians? And he also mentioned, as far as the weights, and it's multiple theories about why they removed the weights. People say the inmates was getting too big, but it's probably, according to him, it was more or less just the weaponry or whatnot. But anyway, again, it's gonna all depends on your experience in prison. As far as gonna depend on your experience as far as this work. Again, like I said, I'm gonna reiterate, the guards don't do no work. They don't like to do work. Like when we on lockdown, The guards now gotta bring you your food. You know, we don't walk to the dining hall because, of course, it's riots going on. So they don't like doing that. So normal program, like again, the inmates do all the work. So we got access. We know, we can see, you be watched at all times. Like when I worked at the law library, I could pull your number up and see your charges. Now you may be thinking that, damn, ain't that cool? Not cool, flagrant. You got a criminal like me able to look through your business. But in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I think that, well, for one, the guards don't want to do nothing, and two, who will be more likely to help another inmate than an inmate than somebody in the same position? And this is just in the scope of the law, the legal library. And I mentioned another video that you do got law library scholars, which is different from a jailhouse lawyer, different from somebody that you may meet in the bullpen and just running their mouth. You do got some brothers, trust me, that know that law. You know what I mean? And I take a good paralegal over a dumb Trump lawyer any day, if you know where to look. But again, that's a whole different story. But I learned a lot working at that law library, and I ain't lying. Real legal, manuscript, everything. And I got a lot of paperwork. I'm just that type of guy, man. I still got the box that I paroled in with the number right there, just because. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to kind of let y'all know how it was. I know I'm rambling on, but how it was and how probably it still is when you're working in prison, CDC. And I'm pretty sure every state is the same way for the most part, give or take. But it's no different than the streets. You got to get up in the morning and you got to work. And the cold part about it is you working for a little bit of change in there. And of course, even in there, you'll hear somebody say, you know, you don't want to work on the street, but you'll come in here and work for a little bit of nothing, which essentially is true. And it's funny because, again, in there, especially when you're in there and you've been in there, you're going to have a certain position or a certain prestige. And I think made that another thing being institutionalized, you know, but whatever, that was just a thought. But yeah, that's what it is, man. And it's a lot of, you can learn a lot in prison, but it's a funny thing, again, like I was saying, as far as, excuse me, y'all, as far as them not letting you get certain degrees or whatnot like they used to. And I don't know, now they put the R on it for rehabilitation. I don't know what that means. I hope they ain't just talking about no GED, because that ain't nothing. I remember when I was in the pen and I already got my diploma, but it was so boring. Like I always say, prison is boring. It's so boring, I just went and did it just to do it, just so I can have something to do. And that's the truth. And of course, I don't recommend nobody to go to the pen and figure this out, but think about that before you doing whatever you out there doing, because when you go in there, if you don't want a program, and the incentive to program is them taking off your time, so you probably gonna want a program, or unless you just ain't, you out in there rocking. Either way, it don't beat out here, you know what I'm saying? So think about that, because if you go in there, you're gonna be working, man. So you might as well work out here, you know what I'm saying? Get the little 9 to 5 until you're able to develop which direction you want to go and start working for yourself eventually. And that's what I recommend. You ain't gotta listen to me. Matter of fact, don't listen to me. But BadNewsBrown breaking it down for y'all one time, y'all. Go ahead, don't forget, man. Please subscribe. Peace.